Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on the latest episode of The Walking Dead Bounty. As usual, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so consider yourselves warned. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. Let me just start this review by saying what a bloody fantastic episode that was. Honestly, I think Bounty might be my favourite instalment of this season so far. It does a brilliant job of showcasing just what a cruel and scary woman Alpha is, as well as featuring a storyline in which Ezekiel and Carol must find a new projector light bulb. Wait a minute, that can't be right, surely. Let me just check my script quickly. Did these two things really happen in the same episode? Looks like they did. Strange. What's even stranger though is that having these two contrasting storylines play out against one another somehow works. You've got the serious nature of what is happening at the hilltop with the Whisperers mixed with the humorous and relatively low stakes mission that Ezekiel and Carol find themselves on, and oddly it all fits together perfectly. Take the intro for example, in which you have Jerry celebrating his girlfriend's pregnancy and Ezekiel daydreaming about the communities all signing a charter which will signify them all working together. It's a wonderfully optimistic opening that all of a sudden just cuts to Alpha's cold dead stare outside Hilltop's gates, which reminds us of the real danger around the corner, and I love that. It certainly is risky, including two story strands in an episode which both have completely different tones, but The Walking Dead manages to pull it off, and I actually enjoyed the Whisperers storyline as well as Ezekiel's and Carol's in equal measure. Anyway, I'm going to talk about Alpha and the Whisperers first before I move on to the goings on with the Hilltop. As expected, things pick up from last time with Alpha and her group outside the gates demanding that her daughter Lydia be returned. At first, Daryl plays hardball as he's confident that the Hilltop has enough firepower to take down her and her followers. Alpha, however, quickly learns how to push Daryl's buttons in order to gain the upper hand. Alpha initially calls on reinforcements, but the extra Whisperers fail to intimidate Daryl. It doesn't matter though, because Alpha has something else in her ranks that does intimidate him: a baby. Now, I don't mean this in the sense that Daryl has some kind of weird phobia of infants which causes him to run away every time he sees a child, rather that because Daryl knows one of the Whisperers is carrying a baby, he can't risk starting a firefight in case the child gets hurt. And Alpha is well aware of that fact, because she gives Daryl a little sly smirk when he asks her about the baby, as if to say, Daryl my boy, I've got you exactly where I want you, you're not going to attack me, and we both know it. It's pretty damn evil using a baby as a weapon, but that's exactly what Alpha does. I mean, the mother and the child didn't have to accompany them to Hilltop, but I think she made them come knowing that she could use the baby to her advantage. That is cold, and that just goes to show how dangerous a woman Alpha really is. The final step of Alpha's plan is to reveal that she also has Alden and Luke hostage, at which point what other choice does Daryl really have but to do what she says? I think putting Daryl in the position of being the character who gets to decide Lydia's fate was a shrewd move on the writer's part. Daryl suffered beatings as a child just as Lydia has, making the decision to hand her over a tough one for him to make. However, the alternative to this is to risk Luke and Alden both being killed whilst also potentially sparking another war, so I understand why he went with the former option. Unfortunately, handing over Lydia wasn't as easy as just grabbing her from her cell and giving her to Alpha, thanks to Henry helping her escape. Now, I'm sure Henry is going to get a lot of shit from viewers who feel that he messed up by disobeying Daryl's orders and also by putting Luke's, Alden's and the entire community's lives in danger. But you know what, surprisingly, I'm not actually going to be joining in with all the Henry bashing. I know that they haven't known each other for a long time, but Henry clearly has feelings for Lydia, and it seems that she does have feelings for him also. So imagine for a moment being in Henry's shoes, being told that the girl you like is going to be sent back to stay with a woman who beats her. How would you take this? Not well, I'd bet. So this is why I'm not angry with Henry. And let's not forget, when he escaped with Lydia, he didn't know that Alpha had Luke and Alden. So it's not like he was willingly sentencing them to a death sentence for a girl. Sentencing them for a death sentence? Oh, that's really bad writing. Also, Daryl himself didn't want to hand over Lydia at first, and it was only when he saw a baby in their group and when Alpha threatened Luke and Alden that he had to give in. So I think we all shouldn't be too harsh on Henry. The only thing I didn't like about Henry and Lydia's escape was Enid's speech which referenced Carl's letter. I know it's a bit picky, but I found her dialogue to be pretty bad, and it reminded me of the old cringy speeches that plagued the last few seasons. Look, just keep Enid out of the show, please. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Alpha now for a moment, as there's another scene this episode which showcases her ruthlessness that I simply have to talk about. So as Alpha waits for Hilltop to hand back Lydia, she notices that her little meeting with the Hilltop has caught the attention of some of the undead. She sends a few of her followers to keep the walkers at arm's length, with the walkers ending up far enough away to not be an immediate threat to the hilltop, but also close enough so that if Alpha does want to call on them to help, she can. With the walkers dealt with for now, the baby that I previously mentioned starts crying. Alpha notices this but does not show any concern for the poor child. Instead, she just gives the mother a disapproving look, at which point the mother knows what she wants her to do. Lay the infant on the floor for the undead to eat it. As you'd expect, Alden and Luke are absolutely horrified by this, at which point Alpha says that if you walk amongst the undead, you need to be silent, and that if you can't, you die. It's natural selection. This is just absolutely brutal, and it reminded me of some of the ruthlessness shown by the villains in Game of Thrones. I have to admit I was a bit worried coming into this season regarding how Alpha's survival of the fittest mindset would translate over to TV, but Samantha Morton's delivery is something else. I was nervous that the concept of Alpha might have come over on screen as a bit dumb or silly, but no, she's just pretty damn scary. And I would say that I'm more likely to end up in PP Pants City watching her than I ever was with Negan. Luckily, the poor baby doesn't end up getting eaten by the undead thanks to both the hilltop and, more importantly, Connie. The people positioned on the hilltop's gates attempt to draw the walkers to them away from the baby by banging on the gates as loud as they can. I like the fact that they were willing to put themselves in danger by drawing a group of walkers towards them in order to save a baby. It showed the difference between the groups we are following and Alpha's. Sometimes on The Walking Dead the lines can be blurred between good and evil, but there's no doubt in my mind that Alpha is the bad guy in this story. Unfortunately, the hilltop's banging doesn't do enough to attract the walkers, with Connie having to be the one to step in to rescue the baby herself. Luke manages to alert Connie to the baby's screams by signing to her behind his back whilst tied up, and this was a really clever little detail that impressed me. Anyway, when Connie picks up the baby, she sprints into the field of crops where she was hiding previously and tries to escape. It's at this point in which the show's audio becomes muffled and almost silent to illustrate what Connie can actually hear, or rather what she can't hear. And without the sense of sound to alert you to the undead, suddenly everything becomes so much more frightening. The sequence of Connie running through the crops is unerringly claustrophobic, due to the lack of sound mixing fantastically with the close camera angles and the closed-in environment in which it all takes place. There's even a few jump scares thrown in as well, which I'll admit got me because I couldn't hear the walkers coming before I saw them. You wouldn't think that a scene set in broad daylight could be so tense, but I would say this scene is probably one of the scariest moments in the show's history. I think this segment also does a great job of making me properly connect with Connie for the first time. I'm now aware of how scary the world must be for her without hearing, yet even despite this she decided to risk her life for her babies, and I respect her for that. I'm glad that she's decided to accompany Daryl in searching for the Whisperers, and Daryl is probably glad as well because he doesn't really like to talk a lot and she can't talk, so it's a match made in heaven really. Eventually, Lydia is handed back over to Alpha, with Lydia hopeful that her mum has come to find her because deep down she does actually love her. Lydia makes the point that Alpha is breaking her own rules by coming to rescue her. The Whisperers aren't like our protagonists. If someone goes missing, tough shit. Either they live or they die, and if they are strong enough, they'll find their way back to them. So the fact that Alpha has come to save Lydia does beg the question of whether there is still some good left inside her, and if she does actually care about her daughter. I find it ironic that Alpha is willing to let a baby die because, as she put it, it's survival of the fittest, yet here she is standing outside Hilltop trying to rescue her daughter. She's a hypocrite, and you sense there's an internal conflict happening within her, regarding if she wants to be Alpha or if she wants to be Lydia's mum. The fact that she slaps Lydia before then hugging her is perfect proof of this. She slaps her for not addressing her as Alpha, but then she hugs her because deep down she's secretly relieved to have found her daughter safe. Alpha's state of mind is quite frankly a bloody mess, but it just makes her all the more engaging to watch. Moving on to the other focus of this week's episode, which centered on Ezekiel and Carol's mission to recover a projector light for the upcoming fair. As I've already said, this was a much more light-hearted affair compared to everything happening at Hilltop, but it proved to be just as enjoyable to watch. At first, Ezekiel tried to hide from Carol that he and Jerry were going to the cinema to risk their lives in order for a poxy light bulb. Carol asked Ezekiel if he was scared to tell her what he was really up to, which prompted a nervous reply from the king, with him then asking for backup from Jerry, who took one look at Carol and said no comment. I found it hilarious that these two were scared of Carol, and it kind of reminded me of times when I've been in trouble with my wife. So King Ezekiel, I know what you're going through, just stay strong my friend. Now it's easy just to flat out criticise Ezekiel's mission by saying that it's completely pointless and a stupid thing to do. I mean, why put people's lives in danger just to watch some movies? It's dumb, right? Well yeah, but I can understand why getting the projector bulb is so important to Ezekiel. The kids born into the post-apocalyptic world of The Walking Dead don't even know what a movie is, and like Jerry says, a film would blow his kid's mind. Ezekiel just wants to give the children a bit of happiness to distract them from the walkers that are everywhere, and I can't really be mad at him for that. If Ezekiel had been searching for a light bulb back in season 1 a mere couple of months after the undead sprung up, I would have thought that he was crazy, because there's a lot more important things to be gathering when the world has just fallen apart. However, I think it's been about 7 or 8 years since the Walker outbreak started. Ezekiel has established a life for him behind the walls. He's not just surviving every day as Enid put it, instead he's living a life. And it's only natural with him being safe at the kingdom that he needs and wants things to do. So I'm actually on board with Ezekiel's little mission this time around. Now think of it this way, if I had survived for 8 years in a zombie apocalypse, I'd like to think by that point I'd become pretty competent in dealing with walkers. Now if someone told me that there was, I don't know, a working Nintendo Switch in a room full of walkers that we could grab, then I'd say yeah, let's go and try and get it. When you're out on the road surviving, all you have to think about is survival because you're so preoccupied with just staying alive. But when you've got a home, you need hobbies, you need things to do so you don't get bored, be that watching a movie or playing a video game. I fully expect the Ezekiel and Carol portion of this episode to get criticised due to their mission being low stakes compared to what was going on at the hilltop. But bringing that light bulb back to the kingdom was important to Ezekiel for the happiness of his people, so I get it. I get it and I like this part of the episode, and hopefully you can all see where I'm coming from. And that's about all I have to say regarding this week's episode. Bounty is a fine instalment and probably my favourite so far this season. The first real meeting between Alpha and our protagonist was brilliant, and I haven't been this excited about a Walking Dead villain for quite some time. Not really much else to add, this was a bloody good episode. Watch it if you haven't already. There you go, that's the end of the video. Please let me know your thoughts below. Did you like this episode as much as I did? Did you think it was okay or did you hate it? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. And anyway, with that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care, goodbye.